Welcome back to another episode of Evergreen Marketing for Women Entrepreneurs. Today's episode is such a good interview with the queen of email marketing, Allison Hardy. Allison is the go-to tough love bestie of email marketing. She helps smart, ambitious entrepreneurs sell their offers on autopilot without living in their inboxes or posting on Instagram 24/7. A master of punchy subject lines, curated bundles, and why hasn't anyone said it like this before? Captions. She's as strategic as she is snarky in the best way. Whether she's planning her next viral reel, revamping a funnel that's somehow still making money, or building a marketing movement around CEO moms doing business their way, Allison leads with heart, clarity, and a whole lot of strategy. Oh, and if you try to sell with a just checking in email, she will lovingly roast you and fix it in 5 minutes flat. Now, this was such a good conversation with Allison. She shares so many great insights into how to sell through email and actually see conversions. I highly recommend you grab a notebook and pen so you can take notes because she shares a lot of the strategies that she uses in her own business as well as with her clients, and it's so good. All right, let's jump into today's episode. Allison, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. I'm so excited to chat with you today. I personally love email marketing and leveraging it in my business, but I'm excited to, talk about what it is, like how you support your clients and just how we can effectively sell through email. So to kind of kick things off, many of the mamas listening to the podcast, they've grown an engaged audience. They have solid offers and everything, but they're still relying on social media to drive sales, and it's exhausting. So why do you think email marketing is such an overlooked strategy for making consistent sales?
Yeah, and I'll answer that. And also, this is an important part of my story. So, I started my business when I got laid off when I was 6 months pregnant. So, I realized very early on that I needed to have a marketing strategy that actually worked when massive life changes were going on, lost the job, having a baby, talk about an identity shift. So I had been marketing. I had a very, very part-time business when I was in my 9 to 5. I'd been doing it all on social, and I started to realize hey, this depends on me feeding the machine. I have to show up physically, show up live to do a story or to create a post and all this stuff. And I realized those pieces of content had a very, very short lifespan. So then when Camden, my oldest, was born, I was like, okay, I need another platform that actually allows me to maybe automate something or pre-plan something. And so email marketing became that for me because I was good at writing, and I just decided that that was what it was going to work for me. So for someone who's building their business on socials, is it actually working for you? So you said that people are exhausted. Most of your listeners are exhausted because they're riding that social media train. So what if you could create something that you can rinse and reuse over and over and over again that isn't algorithm dependent, that is actually designed to drive traffic off of the platform, right? It's really hard to drive traffic off of social media. Email is designed to drive traffic off of the actual email and over to a sales page or whatever it is you're driving traffic to. So if those check all the boxes, then yeah, I think email marketing is a good choice.
Yes, I agree. I think what I love about email marketing too is, like you said, you can automate it. And that's something we need as moms. That's, again, kind of working for you behind the scenes that you're not having to show up live for and everything. So yeah, it's really important. I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about actually selling in email. I know that especially clients I've worked with, they're kind of hesitant to sell through email, or they're like, I don't want to come off salesy. And so they focus more on nurturing and everything. And so I would love to hear your thoughts on selling an email, but also really looking at the different buyer types, because I think that's part of it too. What do I actually write in my email to sell? What do I say and everything? And so can you kind of talk us through, what it looks like to effectively sell through email marketing and then taking in consideration the different buyer types?
Yeah. So I think a lot of times it's a mindset shift. So the best way that you can serve someone is by getting them into your program, whatever the thing is that you do. And so all roads should lead to that thing. So yes, we can provide value. Yes, we can serve people before they buy from us. But the best way to actually help someone again is to get them into your program. And so when you can come at it from that perspective, selling becomes serving. You're serving people by telling them how you can actually help them. And that's what people need to understand in order to buy from you. They need to understand what it actually is that you do and how by working with you, X, Y, and Z will be transformed. So number one, I think we have to get our heads around that idea. Number two, you run a business. So we're here to make money. Like we're here to sell people into our stuff. Otherwise, you just run a really expensive hobby. So if you have maybe like something to think about is having some sort of like why in your business. Like, what does this money that you're bringing in help you to do? What does it help you to facilitate in your life? Does it pay your bills? That's great. Does it put food on the table? That's great. Does it save up for your Disney vacation? Cool, great. But have like a reason behind it so that when you are selling, you keep that motivation in mind. Um, and then when it comes to buyer types, when you're selling, you need to make sure you're speaking to the 7 different buyer types we all have. So I'm not saying all buyer types in one email. What I am saying is for each buyer type, there should be at least one email. And you will find that you may have a lot more of one type of buyer in your audience. So maybe you create more of those types of emails. But we all have across the board, and I've done like research on this, we all have 7 different buyer types. And so like just talking to one type of buyer just excludes a whole portion of your audience. So by speaking to 7 different buyer types and how they're motivated, what their limiting beliefs are, what their objections are, it helps people to understand, oh, this can actually help me. And again, the best way to help someone is getting them into your program. So it helps to kind of close that loop.
Got it. A follow-up question to that is, so if someone is writing an email, it's like a specific topic, do you recommend that like they write that same email, so to speak, but structure it differently for each buyer type, or kind of like walk us through that process of creating emails for each buyer type?
Yeah. So the 7 different buyer types all, again, have different objections and limiting beliefs. So they need different things from each email. So let's say you're writing a pitch sequence and it's all going towards, your flagship program, whatever that is. If you're writing to like the skeptic, for example, you're not going to talk about pain points. You're going to show a client story. So you're going to show, okay, this person was here. They enrolled in the program because of this, and then they saw these results. For the skeptic, they need to know, does this thing actually work? Can this person actually help me? And while their story may not be exactly the same as that person in your client story, they're still going to see bits of themselves in it. So that's what I mean by that. So like, there's also like an engagement person. So there's an engagement buyer we all have. And this person needs to like have a conversation with you. So this email doesn't have to be anything long. It can be super, super short. It could say, hey, name. By now, you know the doors to name of program are open, but you haven't enrolled. It means you've got some questions. Hit reply and ask away. And those people who need that like connection with you are going to respond like crazy. You're going to get an inbox filled with questions from this type of buyer. And all the questions are going to be like, to you, they're going to seem super minuscule, like very obscure, like, whoa, this is the question. But for the person who's sending that question, it is like the thing that's in the way of them buying from you. So, yeah, the structure of the emails changes, the length of the emails change, what you talk about in those emails change. And it really is meant, again, to point out and to speak to those specific buyer types.
That's really good. Um, I want to go back to automation. So, I know that automation is a big part of how you run things in your business and everything. So, tell us like how that's really benefited you as a mom, and what results you've seen through automation. Like, I know one thing that comes up for people is like, oh, if I automate this, it's gonna feel robotic, or I'm not gonna really able to build that connection and everything. So talk to us about, how you leverage automation and how you navigate that with actually still building relationships with your email community.
Yeah. So when someone comes onto my email list, they're in an automated email funnel for at least 90 days. Right now, I think it's up to 100 days. So I know with certainty that for that amount of time, they are getting nurtured, they're getting invited to join my program, they are getting all the things they need from me in order to understand that they're ideal for my program and to maybe buy my program. And the reason why that is because I want to know that I can take off like a month or a week and people are still getting what they need from me. Like this past week, I was so sick. I was in bed. I was like just like miserable. I was not working. But all these people came onto my email list and I know they're taken care of. So it gives me peace of mind. And it also makes it so that my business actually works when I am not. And so if you're worried about being robotic when it comes to automation, like the emails are only robotic because you make them robotic. So is there a way that you can introduce a little bit more heart? Is it you like talking into your phone and it transcribing it into an email? Like I think the robotic concern I understand, but I also like don't fully think it's a real concern because I think people don't fully understand the benefits of automation. So like if they're feeling robotic, it's the emails that are the problem. You have that control. But also like if it's feeling robotic, is it because they're delivered on a very regular schedule? That's actually a really good thing because we need to be consistent in our businesses. We need to show up on a regular basis. So I think like there's a couple of things to think about. Like why is automation something that people are so concerned with?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's like I said, that mindset shift needs to happen. But I also too, and I see it something comes up with my clients as well. It's like they go into email marketing thinking they have to be, polished, professional, like how they wrote, emails for their corporate 9 to 5. And it's like, no, bring your personality into it. Show people who you really are, write like you talk and everything. So I love that suggestion you gave about like, recording yourself saying out the email, then transcribe it, of course, clean it up and everything. But I think that kind of takes the pressure off and you're bringing yourself into it and it's not going to be robotic because they're actually getting the person that they would get whether they work with you and different things like that.
Yeah, and especially if like one of the main things you do is you have a podcast, like you have so much good content there. You can take the transcript of your podcast, you can put it into a robot like ChatGPT, but and like ask it to make an email out of that, but it should still preserve like your voice and how you say things. So like find ways where you can still capture your voice through emails. I just gave you an example, but like talking to the phone, like find a way that you can really take how you speak and put it into an email. I think that really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I agree. I'm curious, do you incorporate a lot of storytelling in your emails or like kind of like what's your approach?
Yeah, I kind of do, but I don't really a ton simply because a lot of my people are like in the pain point. They are experiencing this thing and they're looking at me and they're like, is this person the person to help me? And so they're coming at my emails from that lens. So when it's like they're in the funnel, it's mostly just focused on them getting results. When they're out of the funnel, it is a little bit more storytelling. And I do that because the two different things have different functions. So the funnel is purely like a sales tool. Whereas like the email list for people who aren't in the funnel, the goal is to get them into other funnels or other events with me. And so storytelling is a powerful tool for those things.
I love that. I haven't really heard anyone talk about like that approach before. Because I know a lot of like email marketers, even copywriters are like, oh yeah, you need to incorporate storytelling. But I like how you look at it. Okay, what's the overall function? Thinking about where the person is actually at and what they actually need to hear and everything. So I think that's really cool. It gives me something to think about as well.
Oh, good. Yeah. And I think like we have other ways also that we can tell stories. So like we can tell stories on our podcast. We can go on Instagram stories and tell stories. Like we can incorporate those things in our other marketing channels that could drive traffic to that email list. So I think there's lots of different ways you can incorporate storytelling for sure. And I think stories are very important. We need those to relate to people. And in my pitch sequence process, I always suggest like a your story email. But I don't think like everything needs to be storytelling.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about data. So, email metrics, all that good stuff. So, tell us what email metrics actually matter when you're trying to make more sales.
It's the click rate. So if nobody's clicking to your sales page, nobody's going to buy. But the way you increase your click rate is by getting people to actually open your emails. So that's where the open rate comes in. So they kind of work, or not kind of, they work together. One does inform the other. So, like, if your open rate is really high, that means people are interested in that email. But if in that same email, the click rate is really low, that means your call to action was maybe weak or not often enough, or there's something up with the call to action. If your open rate is really low, your click rate is going to be really low because nobody's opening those emails. So they kind of work together in that they inform one another. But just because like the open rate is high does not mean that the click rate is going to be high.
Got it. What tips do you have for someone who, like, say they are seeing high open rates, but the click rates are lower? So I know you mentioned, adding in the call to action more often, but is there anything else they can do or test out to see how they can increase those click rates?
Yeah, don't be afraid to put the click rate in multiple spots of your email. Definitely put in the PS. What is the stat? 80% of the people who open your emails scroll to the PS first. So if there's something you want someone to do, they want them to click on, put it in the gosh darn PS. You can also play up like what visual cues you're creating to get them to click. So like buttons versus like hyperlink text. Make things bold, make them different colors, make them like an ugly color, like one that's not your brand colors, and see how that goes. Like, don't be afraid to visually mix up your call to action. And then also, I see this a lot is people in emails are basically giving you exactly everything that's like, let's say you're driving traffic to a podcast episode. They're telling you exactly what the podcast episode is about. So there's no need to actually click over and listen to it. So if you want them to listen to the podcast episode, you have to, of course, share what you spoke about, but you have to leave something to mystery, right? You got to tell them like, and then she's going to talk about this, but it's not what you think, or things like that, to get them to actually like pique enough curiosity so that they click over and consume the thing that you're trying to drive them to. So I think those are a couple of ways that you can increase that click rate.
Yeah, those are really good tips. Um, As we wrap this up, one thing I would love for you to share is advice for the mom in business who maybe she's taken a long break from emailing her list and she feels kind of weird about just popping back into people's inboxes. And so, what's your advice for rebuilding that connection and starting to sell again to her email community?
Yeah, I actually was on someone's email list and I haven't heard from her for a while. And the other day she sent an email out and I loved this email. So she basically was like, hey, a lot of life happened. I'm not apologetic about it, but I ghosted you. Here are 3 things that you can do right now to help you with X, Y, and Z. And it was just like 3 action items, super easy. And I was like, oh, okay. And I loved that she didn't apologize because I don't think we need to be apologetic. There are reasons why we go certain platforms for a long period of time, and that's okay. We don't need to feel guilty about it. But if we really want to pour into that platform, it does start with us like being consistent on it. So like give them some sort of value, maybe give them like a free gift, something, and then tell them what's next. So over the next couple of days, you're going to access to my brand new video series. It's going to show you how to do X, Y, and Z. And then like give them the opportunity to opt into it or, whatever, like give them something that they know they're going to get as a clear transformation. It reminds them of who you are and how you help them. Um, and again, don't apologize. You don't need to be apologetic.
I love that. Yes, no need to apologize. Everybody understands. We all go through life. So,
And you're a business, right? You're trying to figure it out. There's no like guidebook any of us have. So like if you go through your email list, cool, that's fine. like, it's part of growing a business. It's figuring out what platform, like, works for us and makes the most sense.
Yep, I agree. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Allison. This was such a fun conversation. And thank you just for sharing your wisdom about all things email marketing. As we wrap up, please share with the listeners where they can connect with you.
Yeah. So I have a free gift. It's called the $80,000 email template, and it's a word for word template, like plug and play Mad Lib style template of the singular email that brought in $80,000 in sales for me last year. So you get access to it. You can see like the actual email, and then there's a description of like why it's so effective and how you can utilize it inside of your business. So I would love for you to study that.
All right. Well, that will be linked below in the episode description and in the show notes. All right. Well, thank you again.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.